The End Is Nigh is Edmund McMillen's new platformer, who is joined for the occasion by Tyler Glaiel. Many people have been calling it a sequel of sorts to Super Meat Boy, although I don't really think it's true. It may be a platformer, and it may be as hard as Meat Boy, but the similarities end here. Throw in some gish mechanics, like sticking to walls or break floors with your mass, I Wanna Be the Guy's more insane platforming sections and world building, a minimalistic aesthetic a la Limbo, and you'll have a good idea of what to expect out of The End Is Nigh, an indie masocore platformer. You play the role of Hash, a blob pile that happens to be one of Earth's last survivors after the Rapture. The first problem which crops up with the game is that you're a pretty lousy lead character, as evidenced by the intro cutscene.
No, oh fuck! Oh fuck! 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 What am I gonna do? Fuck!
I mean, look at the game he's showcasing. This is one of his favorite games ever. That's like every indie platformer that has ever been made. Plus, you'd think level 1 will be a little easier. We shall also give a bonus for the non-original song. That would be like if I said that Frantic Freddy was my favorite retro game ever. I'd probably look like a fool. The gameplay of The End Is Nigh is pretty self-explanatory. In your quest to build yourself a friend and make the end of the world easier to bear, you have to jump, cling, and swim your way through 15 worlds, each comprised of 15 to 20 screens. Like in Super Meat Boy, dying only sets you back by making you restart at the last screen transition, making you lose nothing of value, at least for a certain portion of the game. Unfortunately, a later portion of the game will violate this gameplay concept. On most screens of the game, you'll find an optional tumor to collect, and if you explore hard enough, you'll also find mega tumors, which are worth 5 tumors. Why do you collect tumors anyway? Why did tumors somehow become a good thing to get? I unfortunately cannot tell. Some tumors will be easy to get, others will make your job harder because death will erase the obtention of the tumor if you haven't left the screen with it. It's in your best interest to collect them all. The obstacles that you have to overcome in this game are a hodgepodge of about every obstacle to appear in an Edmund game. Spikes, crumbling buildings, all sort of nasty post-apocalyptic critters that look about the same but behave in different ways. We have frogs, crows, chain chomps, evil ghosts, swinging ghost saw blades, piranhas, and whatever this disgusting growing mass is. Ugh. It doesn't require much playing of the game to notice this isn't Super Meat Boy 2. The pace of the game is a lot slower, your character is a lot slower as well, and the ability to wall jump and slide at will has been lost. Having to resort to stick to hooks and wall corners, the focus is less about speed and more about good execution and precision. But sometimes, it also means that you have to sit around a whole lot and wait for things to be at the proper place, because otherwise, you can't progress at all. And this unfortunately will make certain screens in the game really painful and tedious to navigate. The tumors can also significantly slow down the game, because upon getting them, your first reflex will usually be to hightail it back to the beginning of a screen, to exit it, in order to make it so that the tumor will be obtained for good. And then you get to restart the screen that you're on in order to continue on with the game. Tumors also bring out another flaw to the game. It gets repetitive fairly quick. A lot of tumors will involve you doing the same exact thing from screen to screen in order to get them. There are so many of these you obtain by getting to the end of the screen, then the tumor will appear somewhere at the beginning of the screen, or some obstacle at the beginning is gonna clear out so that you will be able to finally get it, and then you have to backtrack through the whole screen to get it. It just shows a lack of creativity in the level design. The worst obstacle in the game is pollution. It's not particularly difficult to deal with, but it's very annoying and stressful. The way pollution works is, you can only stay in polluted areas for about a second before you die. Even worse, it can sometimes be hard to tell where safe spots are, especially in the bonus 8-bit levels. there's not a single time where I got to a new screen that has pollution or toxic water and said, yes, I'll finally have fun doing this. It's just groan-inducing. Other bad obstacles will be the piranha fish, which are very fast, unpredictable, and aggressive. A very bad mix for someone who moves pretty slowly on the water. The world building also feels a little unnatural. Transition between levels and such don't always feel right or stay in continuity with the previous screen. You also gotta make sure that you've gotten everything you want on certain screens, because there are many points of no return that will prevent you from backtracking unless you restart the whole area from screen 1. There are times where guesswork will be necessary to prevail, others where you only have one chance to do a certain feat. Oops, I could not talk to this guy, and now I have to replay the whole 20 level area from the beginning if I ever wanted to talk to this thing again. In the end, while the game is built to make it seem like an actual world, it remains very linear and there are close to no choices involved in the order of the places you go or anything. Speaking of talking, there's a bunch of characters you can talk to in the course of the game, and most of them are hidden away from everything. They just seem to be a repository for Edmund's thought about philosophy, society, and religion, except they serve no purpose in the game world itself. You gain nothing at all from engaging in any conversation in this game, apart from the tutorial pile of bones in the game's main path. Since there's no way to talk about this game without referencing Super Meat Boy, people want to know how hard the game is. As far as masocore platformers are involved, the difficulty feel okay for the most part. However, it spikes up way too quickly. By the time you get to Overflow, which is early enough in the game, you'll be expected to be competent at the game, as otherwise you will die over and over again. Also, by the time the difficulty gets to that early spike, it doesn't really get that extra harder anymore, so in some ways, it feels easier than Super Meat Boy. Also, some of the later levels difficulty seems to involve randomness and unpredictability instead of precision like most of the early game does. Also, the weird difficulty spike shows up in its bonus 8-bit levels, where you must clear a long series of screens in a row without dying. There are 4 of these levels, and the first one feels way harder than the other ones, which make no sense. Oh, and as a bonus, you can play all 4 series of levels in a row without dying, lest you return to level 1-1. Graphically wise, the game is a mixed bag. The environment in the game look really good for the most part, such as the collapsed cityscape of the end, as well as its post-apocalyptic cousin, Anguish, and the SS Exodus flying ship, to name a few. However, other areas look barren and uninteresting, like the Hollows. And then you have Retrograde, which will hurt your eyes because of the really weird and sharp visual filter applied over everything. Because of the game's minimalistic nature, a lot of enemies will end up looking the same, and this is way apparent when you look at them later in the game's credit. And even critical obstacles like spikes may end up falling under your radar because of this. It will also block some hidden passages because of how everything looks about the same, making the hunt for secret require a whole lot of trial and error that it probably shouldn't need. Edmund always loves to make gross games with gross themes, and the sound effect pay proper justice to this aspect. Sounds are appropriately squishy, slimy, and will make your stomach turn. My favorite sounds are the ones that play when the sentient pile of tumor creep up and extend in order to devour you. If they don't disturb you, you are a stronger person than I am. Music is unfortunately a little more uneven. As with most recent Edmund games, the music is brought by Ridiculin, who decided to drum up some gloomy metal covers of classical music from the 18th-19th century, featuring artists like Eric Satie, Tchaikovsky, Grieg, and Liszt, to name a few. Most of the songs sound great and fit the moods appropriately, especially when the music gets a little more mellow and ambient. However, there are some songs where the mood becomes inappropriate and the music sounds more clownish. Also, Night of the Bald Mountain for the Hell Team world You know that Earthworm Jim did the same exact thing over 20 years ago, right? Funny story, I searched for the original version of Night of the Bald Mountain on YouTube, and the 3/4 of the related songs were the original cover of songs that are a part of the End Is Nigh soundtrack. Later on, when I reached the factory theme world, part of me was disappointed the soundtrack didn't go all cliche and make a cover of Powerhouse. I guess that song was made a century too late for this game. Instead, you get Flight of the Bumblebee, which doesn't seem as fitting. The problem with the soundtrack is that while the songs are good, they don't work well for the post-apocalyptic setting the game goes for. This is a game where you should have dark ambient music or depressing progressive rock in order to paint a better picture of the hopelessness conveyed by the world. After all, you're alone and you face a world where nothing good seems possible anymore. And it will keep getting worse until the end. While the world feels hopeless, the storyline also follows a similar line of thought, and not in a good way. As your favorite game cartridge breaks, you set on a quest to build yourself a new friend, in order to collect tumors together, spit teeth as far as possible, and play video game. Rich Evans voices Hash, and unfortunately cannot redeem the character from the really cringy lines he has to say.
Fuck. What the fuck? How the fuck does the Earth die twice?
Maybe there was an intent to make the character goofy in order to clash against the gloomy setting, but in the end, Hash comes across as too awkward and unlikable to care about. None of the cutscenes involving him will help soften his image, and the final ending will leave you wondering, why did I bother helping this guy out? Even worse, the game's post-apocalyptic setting is hard to buy and take seriously, as the world ends 3 times in the course of the game. One of the reasons why this game can be hard to like is its reliance over game conventions that are outdated. Even worse, these conventions get introduced as you advance more and more through the game, and they override previous rules of the game, which were much better. Remember when I said dying came at no cost but time? In the second part of the game, your tumors act as lives, and this counter will decrease with every death. You get your lost tumors back when you step on a warp point, but if you never took the time to get tumors in the first place, you'll quickly get into trouble and get game overs when all of your tumors are lost. The bonus 8-bit level also features the lives mechanic, as you get a maximum of 18 lives to clear 10 screens. In an age where people think lives no longer have a place in platform games and get phased out of games altogether, lives suddenly becoming a crucial mechanic in the game is very strange and out of place. Oh, and also, for these warp zones where you have to clear a bunch of levels without dying, you only get 1 tumor, by the way, so it's like, you gotta waste a lot of your life to get a life, I guess. So, is the End Is Nigh worth it? If you're a fan of Edmund McMillen's game, you will no doubt snatch it up and gobble it down in seconds. Otherwise, the game is a big mixed bag. It has some fun gameplay sections, the post-apocalyptic setting will be attractive to some, it looks and sounds pretty for the most part, but the game as a whole feels misguided. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be a masocore needle platformer which puts emphasis on insane platforming skills? Does it want to be an adventure platformer that rewards and encourages exploration? Does it want to be a tribute to 8-bit platformer? No one really knows. It seems like it's a game that's influenced by a whole lot of other games, but it never really finds its own voice, and it doesn't really rise above all of them. The overall setting is too vague, it doesn't offer any kind of continuity clues or anything to tell you what might have happened to the world, and it doesn't really resolve itself in a fulfilling way. The cool setting just feels wasted in the end. If you like masocore hard platformers, you might want to give it a go, but it's not gonna blow you away or anything. Sorry game, but your own cutscene here speaks for me. Also, the Ambition soundtrack. Are you kidding me?